In today's episode, I interviewed Jason Buckley from ARC in Hamilton. Jason is the managing director of ARC and is a technical genius who leads a team of highly skilled technicians. He is super clever when it comes to seeing potential for bringing together technology in innovative ways to solve challenging problems. This is a really great conversation, particularly if you're in management and want to use technology to improve efficiencies and tackle difficult challenges like improving health and safety. Jason Buckley, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Josh. Really appreciate it. Pleasure to be here.
So I'm looking forward to our chat today, but to kick things off, for people who don't know anything about ARC, can you give us a little bit of a rundown? If people ask you, what do you do? How do you describe that?
Nice. So we have a technology company, and basically we cover a wide range of sort of like the smarter things. So audio-visual, security, data, IT, and we have electrical as well as a supporting part of the industry. We're also system integrators, which what that means is we program things to make them work together.
Nice. So taking all that tech, connecting it together and making it a dream for people.
That's right. Simplifying it, removing the headaches.
Nice. That's a good pitch. And how many people on the team?
So we have 20 on the team currently.
Very nice. Now, we're going to have a chat today. We're going to talk about the interesting forklift safety project you did and the warehouse efficiency project that you did as well. But before we get into that, what are some other interesting projects that your team have tackled in the last couple of years?
Nice. So, yeah, we were lucky enough to do a big PA system at the Hamilton Zoo, which was really cool, working with some really neat people in a completely different environment. So it was all outdoors, and it was working across many hectares of the zoo itself. So there was quite a bit of network infrastructure that were done by others, but that we had to integrate with. And as you can imagine, it's a vast sort of geography there in amongst trees, paths, all sorts of different landscape. So that was really cool. It was really challenging. There was a few technical different things that we had to overcome as part of that project. We also have done a big distribution centre for the Kmart, which is now based here in Hamilton. So that was 3.5 hectares of just warehouse in the middle, and then a whole bunch of surrounding buildings, which we put a multi-zone PA paging system across the whole thing with different background music, different zoning. As well as that, we've done some really cool high-end housing with some, like the latest facial biometrics, a whole bunch of different audio-visual zones throughout the homes, as well as integrating technology that you'd expect, like lights, blinds, that kind of thing. We've also, in our own warehouse, we've implemented a automated courier drop-off system. So the couriers arrive, recognises the number plate, opens the door, courier can drop off in a certain location, then they can either push the button to close the door, or if the system will notice that there's been no activity in the area for a certain period of time and it automatically shut the door behind them. So really cool, just sort of bringing together a bunch of stuff that exists, but just to make our lives easier.
Yeah, nice. That sounds like a lot of fun. And from the breadth of enormous audio systems across the zoo, and then in a 3.5 hectare warehouse, my goodness.
Oh, it's colossal.
That is huge. And then into high-end homes and audio-visual systems there and facial integration. Wow, that sounds like a lot of tech all connecting together.
It is. And we're very fortunate that we've got a number of different parts of the team that they can specialize in different areas. And so we're able to bring that together and create something really special.
Perfect. Well, this podcast is all about innovation. And so one of the projects that you were telling me about was a forklift safety project. And so first of all, can you tell us who was the client and describe the situation there of what was the problem that they had?
Certainly. So the client is Laminex, which is a Fletcher building company based here in Hamilton. And the problem they had is the drivers or public getting too close to the trucks, particularly when they're loading or unloading. So you might think, oh, well, you just tell them to stand away, and they do that to a degree. The problem is if the truck driver is in a hurry and he wants to get out of there soon, he'll start closing up the truck or unloading, whichever way they're going, while the forklift's operating. The problem is that if he's on the opposite side of the truck while the forklift's loading or unloading, the forklift driver can't see him. So therefore poses quite a huge risk of potentially pallets falling off, crushing a person.
Right. So a big health and safety concern.
Definitely.
And so busy warehouse, forklifts moving around, people moving around. So what was it what technologies did you bring together to create a solution to help make this a safer place?
So we brought together a number of different aspects. So we have several different ways that we track where the forklifts are. So we have fiducials, so an identifier, a bit like a QR code on the forklifts themselves. And the reason that we did that is because one of the other technologies we have on the forklifts is GPS. But GPS doesn't work that well inside buildings, and part of the space is inside the building. So we use both to track down and give a greater certainty as to exactly where the forklift is. And then we have a camera system which looks over it as well. So the cameras are actually all geolocated. So the camera knows exactly where it is in time and space, and it's all calibrated so that it knows when it's looking into the distance how far away an object is, and it can measure how big it is, etc. So from that, we can then work out distances, because we've got multiple cameras and multiple angles, that we can work out how far away the person is from the forklift. Also, factoring into things such as the truck, we can measure through the truck without actually having to have a line of sight between the two of them. So, for example, we can draw a 5-metre circle around a person and say the forklift can't be within that circle. And if it is, then it can trigger an alarm. So as I say, we have multiple systems. So part of that is that we have two-way communications back and forth with the forklifts, which go to indicator panels and things on the forklifts, as well as external sirens, and then email notifications. And there's a whole bunch of other peripheral stuff around that.
Wow. Okay, so that sounds really interesting. So going from a normal dispatch or unloading zone in a busy warehouse to then having all this tech that sounds like it's actually, it doesn't get in the way so much. It sits on the periphery. There's cameras that they won't even probably see.
Correct.
But talk me through the experience then for the forklift driver and how this makes a safer environment.
Yeah, that's a great question. So effectively, you're right. They don't see it or hear it. We had sirens in there, as I mentioned. They were going off quite regularly, and we got requested politely to disable them. Funny enough, the forklift drivers weren't too happy when it was made public that they were doing something wrong. However, they still are aware of it because there's indicator panels on the forklift to let them know that they're breaching the health and safety measures, as well as a daily report which is generated that the managers get. And they can also pull up incidents on the system at any time to see exactly what happened, where it was, what forklift it was, and work out who the driver was. So there's real health and safety incentives there for them to actually do the right thing. And so for them not just to ignore the fact that the driver might be not doing what they've been asked, but actually to encourage the drivers to also stay out of the way.
Yeah, interesting. And so it creates this feedback loop for them immediately. There were sirens that, okay, we decreased those. But you mentioned something about a panel on the forklift as well for the driver to see.
Yeah, that's correct.
And so what happens there if they get too close or something happens?
Yep. So it has indicators to say that the system's functional normally, and then it has other lights that start coming on once they breach particular zones or once they get too close to people. Then it starts flashing the lights so that they know, hey, you need to back off, you need to look around. Because as I say, they may well not be aware of the problem if it's across the other side of a truck, for example. So they need to then stop, look around, check their environment, make sure it's safe to continue operating.
That's really interesting, especially for those times when, like you say, that they can't even see through the object, but the camera system is alerting them, hey, there's a human that's too close to your forklift right now.
Yep.
That sounds amazing. What was the reception from management with the system getting implemented? What were any comments that you had back from them?
Look, management love it, as you'd expect. Even the health and safety manager thinks it's fantastic. However, the dispatch and the forklift drivers, not so much. They're really not so keen on that sort of thing. And health and safety, it's just more paperwork, really, isn't it?
And so, yeah, I can see the resistance there, especially when you're getting in the way of me doing my job quickly. But actually, health and safety systems, this takes it from being a policy to actually being a system that is preventing accidents.
That's right.
Nice. So management, very happy with it. The health and safety manager happy with it. And I guess overall, even if the forklift guys are a bit grumpy that it might get in the way or slow them down or give them alerts or tell on them when they're doing something wrong, the end result is that for a big company like Laminix, their dispatch area is much safer, I imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, they operate a zero harm policy, so Must like most big companies, they want every employee to go home safe at the end of the day.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's interesting. So just run me through again this wasn't an off-the-shelf system, was it? Like this was custom made by what you described?
Correct. Yep. So there's a lot of coding in it to take all the data. So they're not just regular cameras. As I mentioned, they're all geospatially located. So they're all calibrated. They all know their exact geosynchronous position. And so we then take that data as what we call metadata off the cameras, separate to the video streams, and then that's all compiled. It's taken with all of the other data coming in, the GPS data, as well as the fiducial locations of where the different objects are, because we have object classification. So we can tell if it's a forklift or a human or a truck. And so we actually put all that data into big data pools, and then there's a lot of processing that goes on there, which is where some of the smarts is in the system to then get the feedback and the outputs that we need.
Yeah, well, that sounds excellent, and I do like how with that innovative space, being able to bring technology together, the end result in this situation is a safer workplace.
Absolutely,
and that's a great use of technology. Now, one of the other things that you told me that you did within the same supplier was actually some warehouse efficiencies.
Yes.
So tell us about the before you started this project. Describe for me the situation and what the company was doing and how things were running.
Yeah, that's a great question. So before we came along and saw what they were doing, they literally had these large pieces of board, bigger than this table. So, and on each end of the pieces of board, they had a printed piece of A3 paper, which was then laminated, and they literally used to get up there on a elevated work platform, which required two people to then get up, and they would stick these laminated cards onto these boards. And I watched them do this one day and said to them, "How often do you do this?" And I said, "Oh, well, it takes two people, so it's a bit of a pain." And so, we do it sometimes a couple of times a day, but multiple times during the week.
And what was on this paper? Like, where were they going? They were on the board?
So it's in the warehouse, and basically it directs them to what are they stacking in what different areas of the warehouse, because the product they have is not always the same.
Right.
So depending on the orders that are coming through, I mean, they run a very much like is a Toyota model where it's just in time. So they order the product for what the jobs are coming up. Certain base products they warehouse in stock. But then, so product's always coming in, going out, and it's always moving. So they, depending on what they're using and doing at the time, or depending on what product they have into where it needs to go in the warehouse. So
Okay.
that's why they were getting up there and they're regularly changing it. If it was just this stuff goes here and that product goes there all the time, then nothing needs to change.
Right, but it's quite a dynamic warehouse then. Up to twice a day, they're getting on this elevated work platform to stick another A3 laminated sign up there to say this product is now in this bay or this area of the warehouse.
Yep. So it being a big warehouse, there's multiples of these boards across the place. And so it wouldn't necessarily be the same one they're changing twice a day, but definitely multiple boards across the day in different parts of the warehouse, depending on what was coming in and based on orders, etc.
Right. Okay, I understand. So we've got a big warehouse, lots of changes of where things are getting stacked and where things need to go for that day. And so we're hearing there's two people they're having to do this every time. It's quite inefficient, but so it's working. But it's inefficient and very manual.
Yeah.
So what was when they came to you with this challenge? Or how did you decide to solve this problem? Did they come to you with a challenge, or did you spot this and say, hey, we might have a solution?
I believe at the beginning we spotted it and went, could we have a conversation about a better way to do this? And they sort of looked blankly at us and go, sure, absolutely. If you can come up with something, we'd love to hear it. I guess they'd never really thought of maybe using technology to solve that issue. It was probably sort of in earlier days with them, and I guess since then we've been able to do other projects like the Forklift project because they see us as an innovative company.
Right. So you said to them, hey, there might be a better way here.
Yes.
And then, so what was the solution? What did you create in order to solve this?
So you might think it's simple now, but back in the day it wasn't readily available. Essentially what we've done is create a custom-made digital signage platform. So everything about it is fully custom coded. So it's all written in HTML script, and we run a on-site server. And basically we have screens. So each of those laminated panels has now been replaced with a screen. So they are all placed all the way around the warehouse. And those screens are all identified with numbers on them. and then they have all the different codes and colors and all the sequence that they need to then, for the forklift drivers as they're driving along, to be able to look and very, very clearly see quickly where to put the product.
Nice. And so the forklift drivers used to look at these A3 laminated signs.
Yep.
Now they're looking at the screen. It's got color on there now, so it's a bit more visual for them to see. But it means that no longer are these guys having to get up to manually change the sign. So now it sounds like somebody in the office just punches in a number.
Exactly. Yep. They just go into the web interface that we've created for them. They just update the numbers. They can pull up a preview of it on the interface so they can see what's going out, and they update it and it's done.
Nice. What type of efficiencies does this create in a warehouse like that?
So we weren't expecting to get any space efficiency gains, but they came back to us after, I think it was 6 months or a year of running it, and said, we gained 15% efficiency in this warehouse and we want to roll it out to the next warehouse. So we then did the second bays of warehousing just because of the sheer volume of efficiency that they gained. So it was a great surprise to all of us. We were just hoping to gain for the labour, make something safer and less labour intensive, which we absolutely did, as it saved them so much time. But as well as the time, it created a more efficient space that they could pack things more densely and then move things around more dynamically.
Wow, that's really interesting. So the innovation was there for a labour efficiency,
yes,
but you actually ended up being able to have warehouse efficiency on top of 15%.
15%, which is quite big when you consider it.
Yeah. Well, outstanding. What a project. And all custom coded, but onto LED display panels.
Yes.
And actually just runs beautifully for them.
Yep, absolutely.
Nice. Though that's really interesting to see how innovation can actually impact just the processes within a business too, and making them more efficient, which hopefully either puts more profit in the company or brings down costs and they're able to be more competitive. So all of that is where innovation can really help. So as system integrators and using all this different technology, what are the biggest hindrances that you see for companies tackling innovative projects like this?
Great question. I guess there's a few of them. Some of them are finding innovative problems to actually tackle. But outside of that, it's then finding people that want to pay to have that looked at, and then finding the talent to actually code things or to develop things. You've done a bit of coding yourself. You know that you estimate a project and normally it takes twice as long or 3 times as long than what you actually think.
So true, so true. Okay, so the willingness to invest in that innovation and then find the right partner in order to execute that.
Yes.
Nice. What's next for business and for your business in terms of innovation? What do you see?
We've got a number of projects we have on the go. As I mentioned, some of it is around trying to sell the idea. So there's a sort of chicken and egg problem where you have an idea and you want to sell it, but you need somebody to kind of fund it. So you sort of got to sell it before it's ready, which sometimes can be a bit of a challenge because there's a bit of a lead time around, once you then spin that up to the developer, especially, if you don't have as many staff as you could do within that department, which is currently where we're at. So that's just part of the challenge really is, then prioritizing which projects you focus on and which ones you don't.
Yeah, that's the chicken or the egg with the resources versus the opportunity.
Yep.
Yeah, always that constant challenge in business.
Yes.
Are there any cutting edge technologies that you've seen out there that you're excited about?
Yeah, so there's a number of different things coming out. One of the sort of a broad thing that we've seen many years ago, like probably 15, 20 years ago, they talked about this whole IP convergence. Everything was going IP, which we've seen that. But what we're seeing lately is a lot more manufacturers going sort of open source or collaborative, which is fantastic. So rather than just these little siloed ecosystems, you now have so much product available that people are freely happy to give you the APIs so that you can actually integrate across the board, which is really exciting. It means that integrators like us can then take product and actually use it for not necessarily purposes it was designed for in the beginning, but it means that you can use it for much wider purposes and more projects, which is really exciting.
Nice. That's interesting with that world of APIs, like you said, when you can actually tap into a system and then connect it to a completely different system or do some custom things with the data along the way.
Yep.
That just frees you to bring your imagination to problem solving.
Yes.
Where in the past, like you say, it was all locked behind closed doors and it was only a proprietary system and you couldn't really get in and adjust things.
Some of the other stuff is, obviously, as you'd be well aware, Power over Ethernet, or PoE, has been developing over the last few years to now we have a lot more power available through that Ethernet cable. So there's a number of projects that we've seen come out, one of them being a PoE amplifier, which is made by PowerSoft. It's an incredible little amplifier. The first time we saw it demonstrated, the rep actually had it running, connected to his cell phone, and running this big PA-style subwoofer and speaker, and we just thought he was pulling the wool over ours. I said, "You're not running it off that." And he says, "Absolutely." And you look at it, and it was running from the USB on his phone, running the little amplifier, running this PA, and you just go, "My goodness, that's phenomenal."
That's crazy.
So when it's running on PoE Plus is only 30 watts. It can produce 140 watts across 2 channels. Amazing technology.
Okay, so you're losing me now with the tech, but what I'm hearing is you're taking something that looks like it can't really power something, and just with this little amplifier in there, running off a cell phone, it powers a whole PA system.
Pretty much.
That's craziness.
It's crazy. It's just amazing. Some of the tech like that people are developing is really, really exciting.
And so from a audio or audio visual space, like, are there businesses that you think could take advantage of this, or where would you see it used in a commercial setting potentially?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've priced that into jobs such as if you think of like a school-wide public address system or background music system, it could be anything. But schools are a great example because they have network everywhere. Kindly, our government paid for that a few years ago. So you can take this little amplifier and you can stick it in any cabinet around the school, and all of a sudden you've got a PA system. So you don't need a whole bunch more infrastructure. You just plug these things in, connect them up, do the stuff in the background, and hey presto, you've now got a pretty cool integrated system with not a lot of hardware out there.
Okay, so yeah, interesting. When that tech just keeps evolving, it just gives opportunities for things that you haven't thought of in the past, or were really complicated in the past.
Yes.
And I guess that's the perfect example of innovation, and hopefully as we keep progressing and keep developing innovative things within our own country as well, that we can bring some of these things to market that will really shift the game for businesses out there.
Absolutely.
Nice. Well, Jason, I've really enjoyed the conversation today. This has been interesting to hear some of the projects that you've done, especially improving processes and efficiencies just by bringing different bits of technology together. That sounds like it's a specialty that ARC does and creates interesting solutions to problems that other people have just put up with for a while, whereas you bring a different mind to it and that innovative mindset to go and solve something that other people haven't solved.
Thank you, Josh.
Nice. So if people want to get hold of you and ARC and the team, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Jump on our website, so arc.net.nz. That's the easiest way. There's a connect with us form on there. Fill it out. Somebody will be in touch. Or there's phone numbers as well. You can give us a ring.
Excellent. Hey, well, Jason, thanks so much for coming in today and having the conversation.
Thank you, Josh. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. And check out our other interviews. This show is proudly brought to you by my agency, Duoplus. We are the digital marketing agency for businesses focused on growth. So if you're an owner or manager in a business with strong growth goals, book a free call with one of our strategists at duoplus.nz.